Hello, everyone. I am Reverend Israel. I'm the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lancaster, and we send our special holiday greeting to you through this video, which will be a collection of story, music, and reflection on the meaning of the holidays this year for us. So from our house, so to speak, to yours, from our hearts to yours, we wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year to all of you. And we hope that you find this message inspiring, inviting, and a meaningful reflection on this time of year for all of you.
There was once a woman who had outlived all her own family. She lived out her life in a hut on the edge of the forest. As the years passed, the villagers gradually forgot she was there. Once upon a Christmas, the old woman sat grumping by a low fire. "Just once," she muttered. "Is that too much to ask? I'd like to have a real Christmas, with a Christmas tree and presents and candles lit and music and a feast." She looked all around, but there was no one to talk to, no one to complain to, only her old dog Uproar sleeping at her feet. Outside, the wind blew as cold as the breath of frost. At last she tired of rocking and grumping, but before she blew out the candle, she went to the door and looked out. Seeing the vast canopy of stars twinkling overhead like some great family of acrobats, the old woman thrust back her head and shouted, "Just once, I'd like to celebrate a Christmas. Is that too much to ask?" And then she went to bed. There was another old woman who was troubled on that winter night. Up in the sky, the star mother was constantly bothered by the complaining of her youngest child. He fussed and he pestered. Nothing would please him. "What's the matter?" cried Star Mother. "Here it is Christmas Eve, and the sky must be at its most beautiful, and with all this work I have to do, I have to be bothered by a cranky youngest child." Youngest child howled, "Mother, just once I want to celebrate Christmas like they do down there." Star Mother stopped to listen. "If that's all that's troubling with you, I suppose it could be arranged, but only this once." "Oh, yes, Mother," cried youngest child. "After all, by next year I'll have grown so big I'll take my place in one of the constellations. But this Christmas, I would so love to celebrate with a Christmas tree and candles, oh, and presents and music. Is that too much to ask?" Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. The church bell began to chime. But even the sound of the bell did not wake the old woman. Then there was a sound that did wake her. Bang, bang, bang! "Hello, the house! Wake up, wake up!" The old woman roused herself. "Who's there?" There upon the doorstep stood the strangest looking, raggediest child she had ever seen. Worse yet, he looked both cold and hungry. "Well, who are you? What do you want?" shouted the old woman. "I was looking," said the raggedy child at last, "for Christmas." With a howl, the old woman threw up her hands. "To be wakened on a freezing day like this by a stranger, looking for Christmas? Where do you expect to find Christmas? Here?" "Well, here is where I am," he muttered. "Oh, come in," she cried out in exasperation, and she dragged him into the room. Upward awoke and dashed up barking, but the old woman hushed him and sent him to sit under the table as she questioned the boy. "You're from the village, aren't you? One of those rascally boys who come out here and chase my cow. Out with it! What prank are you playing on me today?" The raggedy child had walked over to look at the cold fireplace, where a few coals glimmered. "What's this?" he asked. "Mercy!" she cried. "Anybody can see that's a fireplace, and with the fire gone out, too. Here, help me lay the fire." With a good deal of popping, the fire woke up and was soon blazing. The raggedy child stretched out a hand. "Pretty," he murmured. "Aye, pretty it is, but a kettle to boil on is even prettier." And the old woman started a bit of mush cooking. The raggedy child sniffed. "What's in the pot?" "Mush, and I suppose you want some?" "I suppose so, if that's all there is," said the raggedy child, a little ungratefully. The old woman was so angry she grabbed a ladle and slapped a great gob of mush into the bowl. Some of the hot mush splashed onto his face. She stopped in horror. She had not meant to hurt him, but instead of crying out, the raggedy child licked his cheek. "It's good," he said. Somewhat taken aback, she ladled out her own mush and put a jug of cream on the table. "Isn't any sugar." That wasn't really true. She had some hidden away, but she wasn't about to waste this on this stranger. "What's sugar?" asked the raggedy child. When their bowls were empty, the old woman pulled on her stockings and leather boots. "What are you going to do?" "Chores. What else?" The raggedy child followed at her heels while Upward wandered too. The roof of the house was capped with snow, and the fir trees hung heavy with icicles. "Hey!" cried the raggedy child. "I see one! I see one!" What?" cried the old woman, expecting at least a wolf. "A Christmas tree!" the raggedy child shouted. The old woman stared. Well, that fir tree did look a little like a Christmas tree. "What do we do now that we found our Christmas tree?" The raggedy child was dancing in the snow and yanking on the fringes of her shawl. "Is there something more we should do?" "Well, of course. We have to cut it down and take it inside the house," said the old woman. And she fetched her axe, cut the tree, and went inside the house to stick it inside a great big leaky bucket. "There! That is what a Christmas tree should look like." "Well," she was pinching her lip between her fingers, "it lacks a few things yet." And so she went about the house, opening up boxes and drawers. At last she had assembled a little pile, bright yarn, a little bell, some broken beads, and attached them to the tree. "Now, that's what a proper Christmas tree should look like," she said. The raggedy child sighed. "It's beautiful. And now it must be time for the feast." "Feast? Well, I never. Let me tell you, you ungrateful child, there hasn't been a scrap of food in this house for weeks, or at least days." The raggedy child's face grew very still and sad. The old woman tried not to look at him. "Actually, I believe there is an old ham bone and maybe a potato or two." And soon the soup kettle was humming on the hearth, turning that ham bone and potatoes into a most excellent stew. The old woman threw in a pinch of this and that. It wouldn't be too bad if we just had some bread to go with it." And next thing you know, she had out her great big bowl, measuring out flour. The dough was rising, sprinkling sugar over the top and putting it into the oven. "There," she announced. That takes care of the feast." She sat down and put her feet up with a sigh of a poor old woman who was doing her best to accommodate an awkward guest. God would remember her generosity. "What about the presents?" cried the Raggedy Child. "There should be a present for each of us under the tree." "Abominable child! Here I am with an aching back, having worked my fingers to the bone to keep Christmas to you, and now you must have a present? I don't know where a body could find a gift in this house. Unless... no, well... There was a buckle. Silver it was, and very old. She had planned to be buried with it on her dress. She thought longingly of how nice she would have looked, laid out for her burial with the silver buckle glinting up like a last triumphant smile, astonishing the villagers. But then she saw the Raggedy Child's face, so heavy, so disappointed. She rattled off into a corner, crinkled a bit of paper, and there it was, a package under the tree. She did not notice that the Raggedy Child had rattled off into his own corner and done some bustling of his own, and now there were 2 packages under that tree. As evening came on, the smell of the ham-bone stew and baking bread filled the hut. The old woman laid the table with a clean cloth. "Come and eat," she said as she lighted a candle and set it in the middle of the table. The bread crunched as they bit into it. The candle sputtered and the fire sparkled. And the feast, if that's what it was merry. The old woman told a few jokes, and the Raggedy Child laughed. The sound of his laughter filled the house to overflowing and must have echoed clear up to the stars. At last the old woman sat down and said, "It's time for you to open your gift." She handed the package to him, not at all reluctantly. The Raggedy Child took the gift and turned it over silently in his hands. He was examining it every which way, absorbed by the whole weight and feel of it, and at last he opened it. And the smile that spread across his craggy face so transformed it that the last bit of resentment left the old woman forever. "A buckle!" he shouted. "A silver buckle! Of all the things in the world, the thing that I most wanted." And he threw his arms around the old woman and he hugged her and kissed her until she was quite worn out with all of that love. "Oh, now, it's only a buckle." She was blushing to hear how she had hated to give it away. "Only a buckle? Why, it's the most beautiful buckle in the whole world, and I'll wear it forever. You'll see." Then it seemed dusk had fallen, and the first stars were beginning to show in the sky. "I must go," he said. "It's getting late." "Already?" cried the old woman. "But wait, we've not had any music yet." The Raggedy Child opened the door. Across the snow came the sound of the village church bells, clear calling through the winter night. "There is the music. Good night, old woman, and thank you. Thank you." And then he was gone. The old woman sat on by the fire, rocking and grumping. She was aching tired, but happy in the strangest way. Then she noticed the other gift lying under the fir tree. Strange, she had forgotten to open her package. She squatted down, drew it out, surprised at its great weight. And as she opened it, out came the sound of bells and of laughter, the smell of ham-bone soup and baking bread, the light of a candle and the light of stars. A wondrous gift. "I'll keep it forever," the old woman whispered. Up in the sky, Star Mother had been watching for her youngest child. At last she saw him trudging up the great black night sky slope. "Well, how did it go?" she called. "Was it a happy day?" Youngest child sighed. "Oh, it was a lovely day, and I'm so tired." "Wait," she cried. "Tell me all about Christmas. Is that too much to ask?" "It was..." "Oh, Mother," youngest child yawned. "It was enough." That was Star Mother's Youngest Child, originally written by Louise Moeri, illustrated by Trina Schart-Hyman, and adapted by Unitarian Universalist Evan Carvel-Zemer and myself. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that this holiday season finds you with joy, companionship, and some unexpected gifts.
Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains, and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. In excelsis Deo, Gloria. In excelsis Deo.
Time of year, my hope for all of us is that we can find the space, the time, the stillness to reflect upon and to discover the richness, the beauty, and the gift, the richness that is already inside all of our hearts during the holiday season. And that can be a difficult thing to do. The holidays, in so many ways, are a time of excess, a time of parties and celebration and merriment, a time of gift giving and presents. And there are so many messages all around us this time of year, telling us about all the stuff we need, about all of the excessive stuff and doing and to-do lists that we need to make ourselves happy, that we need to find joy, that we need to go out and get stuff to find joy, that we need to seek it out, that we need to work ourselves, that we need to find all of us glitter to sprinkle all around us and put on our cards and shiny paper that we need to wrap things in. Don't get me wrong, I love this time of year. It's fun. It can be fun, all the glitz and the glamour and the sparkles and the shiny paper and the ornaments on trees and the lights on houses. All of these things can be really beautiful. And holiday parties can be fun. And feasts can be enjoyable and pleasurable and joyous. And gift giving can be a really meaningful way to express the love and gratitude that we have for people in our lives. But for many of us, the excesses of the season can also be this incredible pressure. We can feel like we are not doing enough, feel like we need to be extraordinary, feel like we need to create the perfect holiday, the perfect Christmas, and that we need to put on a brave face when we are feeling not so joyful inside. Feel like we need to create the perfect holiday for our families at the expense of our own health, at the expense of our own need for stillness, and at the expense of our own bank accounts too. And we can feel perhaps that we are less than because we can't afford it, or we don't have time or energy to make all these things happen. And we can end up making ourselves feel burnt out. Or maybe we just don't feel like celebrating on Christmas during the holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas. Maybe the meaning of Christmas is lost on you. Maybe you never celebrated Christmas to begin with, or maybe you no longer believe in the myths of the season. These things can be the shadow side of the holiday season. Because for so many of us, the holidays can so starkly remind us of what and who perhaps we are missing at this time of year. I know the older woman in the story that Lenore told us sharply feels the loss and the pain of what she does not have, of what is missing from her life. She feels like she does not have enough, perhaps, and like she is not enough. Like she cannot provide the perfect and joyful Christmas. Maybe she doesn't feel like she wants to either. But in the story, it takes only the innocence and the wisdom of a curious and somewhat mysterious child to make her discover and realize the richness that is already there in her own life. So if there's one hope that I have for all of us this holiday season, it is that despite the difficulty or the loss that you might be experiencing, despite the pain of the season, despite the stress or the busy to-do list, despite the pain of another wave of this coronavirus pandemic, that we can all realize the richness, the presence, or the gift of each other's presence. And perhaps the most incredible, beautiful, and valuable gift of all, which is this life itself. This amazing mystery that we are all born into, that we are all given the gift of experiencing, and the gift of encountering other people along this journey. The gift of being able to experience love, and the gift of being able to give love and compassion to each other. The miracle of your own birth. And if there's one other message of Christmas that I want us to all know, it's that the miracle of life, the beauty of life, can and must be revealed in the most ordinary of places by the most ordinary of people. In the Christmas story that tells the story of the birth of a baby that would give hope and salvation to the world, in this story, in this myth, the baby is born not in the baby that would come to be known as the King of Kings by some would come to be born not in a palace or a castle or amongst royalty, but would come to be born in a humble stable, in the company of working animals. And in the story, the people who are first told about the birth of this baby that would come to be known as the King of Kings and the Savior of the world for some people, the birth of this baby was not announced to royalty or to news reporters or to important people, but to simple and lowly shepherds sitting out in a field, cold in the middle of the night, doing their manual labor, tending to their flocks. Common people, ordinary people going about their ordinary everyday lives. The birth of a common baby, perhaps. The birth of a common baby to a family of working class carpenters. This baby would inspire kings to come from far, far away to praise it, for its birth would symbolize hope to them. Hope for an idea, hope for something that would come to change the world for the better. That idea of one tiny baby, of one person's birth that would change the world. May we remember this Christmas that each person we meet, we encounter, can deliver a message to us that just might change the world. That each night a child is born is a holy night. One of my favorite things to say at Christmas time. That the light from the star that would point kings on the way to the thing that they would find their salvation in, that light, that star is something we can find, we can see even in the darkest times. And we must remember that we must listen. Listen for the voices of angels and prophets that are all around us. That we must notice what is holy already in our midst. And see and identify the love and the light that is waiting to be born and break forth into this world. Not the birth of one miracle, but of the daily miracles that are all around us. So at this time of busyness and pressure to celebrate, we remember that one of the other origins of this season is winter and the winter solstice, when nature reminds us to be still and to remember the light that is inside all of us. So will you take a moment with me just to breathe and be still? Be still at this holy time. Be still and to remember the miracle of your own birth. Be still and to remember the miracle of being the gift of life and being alive for one more day, to live and love and to share your light with the world. I invite you to feel and notice the light, the candle in you that is growing and that is fed with each breath you take. The light is you. You are the light. The compassion and the love and the warmth of presence that you carry. All of these things you must share with the world. Despite every time the pain and the difficulty and the complexity of life tries to snuff out that light, may you remember that it is still there, still burning. The miracle of the season, the miracle of Christmas, is not that someone or something will come and save us all. It is that we must remember the light and the hope that dwells in each of us. So may you go out into the world, share your light, and let it bring joy to the world.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Round yon virgin mother and child, and so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds wake at the sight,